Hi, it's Carter Paulsgrove, and I want to show you a series of clips to make my case for Momentum's Navigator's SD-WAN solution powered by Juniper. First, I want to establish what is the internet. So the internet is a variety of different things, but essentially it's a system of computer networks and computer systems communicating over a very large network. So in most traditional SD-WAN solutions, you get a primary fiber and a secondary broadband or two fiber connections so you can get to the internet, so you can get to that core content that we all use. And really what's happened in 2022 with a lot of the core content that we use, think of something on a personal level like Netflix or Amazon Prime or how we stream things at home now. Well, in the business community, a lot of those services that businesses use have moved to the center, so to speak. So you look at these large data centers, QTS, Digital Realty, Equinix, a lot of those interchange points, these large data centers, these internet service providers are now have exchange points or peering relationships to where when you hit a Verizon network and you're destined to Microsoft, that traffic is going to very quickly move to Microsoft. So the internet in so many words has gotten much more reliable because the content that we use on a daily basis is sitting much closer to us. So now just on a general broadband connection, I can hop over to AWS or Azure between 60 and 70 milliseconds, which was unheard of 6 to 7 years ago. So the internet's improved dramatically, and as you look at, and we all consume these services more and more and more, something like 73% of all traffic leaving a business is destined for these clouds. So if we can establish that the internet is improved, if I'm using internet from my local internet service provider, I'm going to quickly, safely, and reliably get to the core content that's in the cloud that I need. Okay, so we've established that the internet is much more reliable. So when you look at your traditional SD-WAN providers like your Big Leaps and your Velos, what happens is if I'm down in Miami and I'm trying to get to the internet, I have to go up to Atlanta or one of their internet drains to get to Salesforce or Office 365 because that SD-WAN box takes all your traffic across the VPN and moves it back to one of their interchange points. And you're paying a premium for that service because a large box to be able to handle some of the big broadband connections that you can get now is $500, $600, $800. And again, we previously established that I don't need to take this trip up to Atlanta to get to O365. I can stay here in Miami and ride the Comcast network and get to that core cloud applications that I'm trying to get to. I don't need to pay that premium all the way up to Atlanta to get to the internet when I can stay local. So that traditional SD-WAN solution where I want to spend $800 on an SD-WAN box just to VPN my traffic up to my Atlanta drain doesn't make a lot of sense. The same thing if you're in Greenville or New York or Nashville or Chicago, you've got to leave the city that you're in most cases, not unless you're in these larger NFL cities, you've got to leave the city you're in, go over to the SD-WAN provider's POP or drain to get to the internet. But what's happened is you're leaving the city when really you can ride that internet provider's network and get you where you need to go efficiently. So what I want to show you next is where Momentum is different and how our price point is much more aggressive. Okay, so now I want to show you Momentum's SD-WAN solution where we fit into all this. So in our situation, if you're in Miami and you're trying to get to the cloud, we're going to allow you to use the local ISP provider because remember that ISP is now paired directly with most of that core content that we're leveraging, and our box is using a session vector routing and it's analyzing each application, each session, and determining the best path. So you're going to have that resiliency. If you lose one, you're still leveraging the local ISPs to get to a lot of that core content that we have. So box to box. So say we have a data center up in Nashville. We still have that site-to-site traffic. That site-to-site traffic is not going to be riding through the SD-WAN provider's gateway or POPs like you traditionally see. When we started out, we said, okay, we're going to give a 1 gig box for $160, and that's very disruptive in the space because you look at your traditional SD-WAN providers, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to be spending $500, $600, $800 for an SD-WAN box, because primarily they have to take all your traffic and move it back to one of their POPs. Whereas we're going to allow some of that traffic to stay local. Your box-to-box traffic is just LAN traffic, so it's using waypoints, which essentially IPs sitting on each one of these boxes, and it's leveraging both connections. So if you lose one, it's not like a VPN tunnel like you have on Velo, where it actually has to reestablish itself or packet duplicate. It's not a VPN tunnel, so it's using session vector routing tunnels to move that traffic. So there's a lot of sophistication there. So the beautiful thing is that that's LAN traffic. It's protected essentially using both connections to move that traffic. And if there are core applications that we want to protect, or we want to provide IP address from Momentum, we can then establish another route into Momentum to where we can protect that traffic. So we're going to bring that bandwidth back into Momentum's POPs, just like I showed you on previously, where everything went back to the other SD-WAN providers. We're going to move a very specific traffic if it's determined this is critical application to the cloud or to some other third-party data center. We want to protect that traffic at all times. There can never be a disruption. So what we can do is a la carte this specific traffic for just a couple $100 back into Momentum's POPs, and then protect that traffic, and then say get it to its destination if the data center was in greenfield. Rather than just rely on the general internet to move that traffic and consider it LAN traffic, where we can bring that back into Momentum POP and charge as a very small minimal fee for that. And on top of that, we can do IPing as well. So if you still had that public-facing server sitting here in Nashville and you didn't want to use the local ISP, so you had two internet connections, you didn't want to use the static whatever IP address that you get, we can provide that IP address from our core to where it doesn't matter which ISP provider you're leveraging to get in. If you lose one of them, that IP address is actually coming from Momentum. So what happens is traffic is coming from the outside world, it's coming into Momentum's environment, which is very, very large and resilient, and then we're handing it down. So we can create some complexity around that, but I think the biggest key to our SD-WAN offering is that, one, the price point for a 1 gig box, but the key to all this is that we believe if you're in Miami trying to get to all these core cloud applications, we don't believe you should pay a premium to move your traffic on a private VPN tunnel back up to the SD-WAN provider's drains to then get you to the internet. There's really no need for that anymore. Say you're in New York and the SD-WAN provider that you're using has a drain in Atlanta. You go from New York to Atlanta, or say you're in Chicago and you need to, you have applications sitting over here and you want to go directly. Rather than that, you have to go through Atlanta. So this is no longer needed. What we're saying now is leverage the internet for what it has improved to be today, and move that traffic from Chicago to New York via our session vector routing protocols and technology that's in our box. Allow that traffic to ride the internet, just considering that LAN traffic. If it needs to head to the cloud, keep that traffic in local to Chicago using the ISP to get to the cloud. Or if it's headed down to a data center, we can bring that traffic into the box that we have sitting there, which leveraging both connections. Or if you have a data center that's needs high availability, we can't just rely on the general internet. We want to protect that data. We can bring it all back into Momentum first, and then from there dump it off into that data center. If we need to provide a block of IPs from our core, we can do that as well. So this is where we fit into that. So we want to talk with you more about it. I look forward to it.